It's time to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. So, Vicki, your boy has been like, woo! It's been a week.
It's been a week for you. I know that. I was getting really worried that you were down and out for this entire time period, George.
It's crazy. You know, it's one of those things where I went for everything and it was none of those things. And I just had to wait until, and it wasn't until later this week that I finally was able to have a coherent conversation where I could actually talk to people. But I have really been under, when they say under the weather,
yes,
the weather was under me.
Well, I'm so sorry for you. Not only that you were feeling bad, but the fact that we had one of the most glorious weather weeks.
Right. Like the best week ever. And I was like, that's nice.
Right.
And I can't breathe and my head is cold, like a fever, headache, and all of that stuff. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, well, I was complaining last week. But anyway, I'm back.
All right. I'm so glad you're back, George. And I'm glad that everything turned out to be negative in all the places we needed it to be negative.
Now, listen, that was the funny thing, right? I was like, okay, negative. And then, man, I'm still feeling like this, negative. And then, well, let's test for everything.
Yes.
And
well,
you
listen,
know, end of the story was you just got a bad viral something.
Which is happening, on top of everything else that we have. A lot of regular germs or have a little bit more oomph to them this year. So we all have to make sure. I'm going to say this. This is not specific medical advice, but you should be probably thinking about getting your flu shot this year, and more so than ever, along with all of your vaccines and your COVID testing and so forth. But listen, George, did you notice that this week the president went to California for a visit?
I heard.
And do you know why he went to California for a visit?
I thought he went to California if I'm thinking of the right thing, because of the trade blockage or whatever it is over there.
Okay, so we have been hearing, and that's why I want to have our conversation this week, over and over, about something called the supply chain disruption.
Right.
Supply chain disruption. So I thought, I would take a few moments really just to talk about what that really means to all of us, because it has now risen to the point that the president got on a plane and flew out to the shipping lane, out to the docks in California to have some conversations with the longshoremen, to have some conversations around what can we do to open up the supply chain disruption. So I want you to think about it like this. The economy is a body. The body has to be fed. It has to be fed. Our bodies are fed through the oxygen that's carried through our bloodstream. But if you have a pinch in that bloodstream in one of the vessels, what happens to that organ at that point in time? What happens is it starts to atrophy and it starts to die, and you start to lose control. So if you put a tourniquet around your arm and it was too tight and there was no blood flowing to your arm, or down to your hand, on your wrist, you lose your hand. Think of the economy as being that same type of system where the body, the economy, has to be fed through two systems, or through two processes: goods and services and human talent. And they are interconnected and interdependent. So right now we have a problem, because when we had the shutdown across the world, we had enough supplies on the shelves to take us through a certain period of time, but we have not restocked the shelves enough in order to continue that process, and we don't have the human talent in place to move those goods and services or goods across the country. So we have a disruption in two things: production and human talent. And that is causing a longer term disruption that we may have to contend with in the economy for a while. I heard the other day somebody say on the news, and I couldn't believe it, Costco's is rationing toilet paper again.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's interesting. I've actually driven through that Long Beach, that whole container port. It
Right.
is, I mean, like, I know what it looks like on television, but in person, it is breathtaking to
It's
drive
breathtaking.
through all, even because that's no joke, and it's containers upon containers upon containers, and like you said, they've got the stuff, but they don't have people to get the stuff to you.
To you, okay, exactly. But on the other hand, even with the numbers of containers that you are seeing there on the docks that you said was breathtaking, there's a disruption in the numbers of ships that are bringing things across the seas.
Mhm.
There's a disruption over in many of our countries in the Far East as far as how much is being produced.
Mhm.
There's a disruption in what's happening as far as the raw materials to produce it, because we don't have the human capital to actually run the machines to bring those things forth. So it's an interdependent, interlocking system. Then what will happen is, possibly, no guarantees here, that if we can't get the supply chain issues resolved, if merchants don't have things on the shelves to sell, what do?
They tend
With their
to
employees.
they let people go. They don't.
They let people go. Okay. They let people go. If we have nothing to sell, then why do you need the employees there? So you can now see how it's like a snowball and that's why it's called a chain. Links in a chain that connect to each other to create a system that is interdependent throughout, for producing goods and services to feed the economy and to feed the human talent who produces goods and services. It's one after the other. It's like a chain all the way through. So I am happy that the president went out to California. I'm surprised that he hasn't gone to Houston. He may do that because that's another big port area, or over to South Carolina and up to New York City, because these are all places where containers and shipping comes in, because we have to fix this issue as best we can. It's not one thing, it's multiple.
Right.
Multiple areas that are now being impacted by that. So what does that mean to you, George?
Yeah. What does that mean to
People
me?
in
What
New York
that
City?
got to do with me?
Exactly. You need stuff.
Right.
Let's start there.
All right. So you're suggesting that if I want my stuff, I better get it now if I want it.
If you see it, you better get it now, because we're already talking about possible disruptions that are going to continue for the next 3 to 6 months, which are going to impact your Christmas shopping and things of that nature. But even some basic things. I was laughing about the toilet paper, but basic items may become more difficult to obtain. There definitely is going to be a slowdown in how fast you receive things. We've gotten very accustomed to, go on to Google and 24 hours later it shows up at the door. That may not happen in the future. But how else could it impact you? Well, if your employers don't have the raw materials, particularly in the manufacturing area, to produce the goods and services, the need for workers may dwindle over time. If that happens, then we could possibly, I'm not guaranteeing anything, possibly see another uptick in unemployment. If that happens, then our restaurant systems and our hotels and the public service areas start to become impacted. And eventually profitability will be impacted. And if profitability is impacted, that is a forward-looking instrument that directly involves sometimes stock market values. So we need to get this fixed. The supply chain issues need to be resolved. I am glad to see that they're now agreed to do 24/7 on the docks to get things back in order. 24/7, I think that's about all the time you have. We need 24/7 365 and all the human capital we can get into the systems to move the supply chain through and even out these disruptions. Well, George, that was a lot, but if you have any additional questions, feel free to give me a call at area code 315-930-4499 or reach out to us at info@Brackens, that's BRACKENS, FSN.com. Go to our YouTube page, like and share and subscribe. And if you have any need for, and you want to go out to Facebook and Twitter, you can also find us there. So George, at this point in time, I'll say our plate is full and hope you feel better next week.
I appreciate you. All right, Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. She is America's Money Maven.